The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Rakor warship as it approached the small blue-green planet. The vessel's sleek, predatory design reflected its creator's nature, hunters from birth to death. Commander Taehyun stood tall on the command bridge, his scaled skin gleaming under the soft purple lights. The natural armor plates covering his chest and back shifted slightly as he breathed. A biological defense evolved over millions of years on the most unforgiving world in the galaxy. "Magnify Sector 4, Taehyun ordered, his deep voice carrying the natural authority of an apex predator. The view screen zoomed in on a continent surrounded by blue oceans. Cities dotted the coastlines, their lights visible even from orbit. Primitive satellites circled the planet, most dedicated to simple communications and weather monitoring. Nothing that posed any threat to the Rakor fleet. Officer Ju approached, her movements precise and efficient. Like all Rakor, she possessed remarkable regenerative abilities. A cut would close in minutes, a broken bone would heal overnight, and even lost limbs could regrow given enough time. This biological advantage had served their species well during their rise to power. "Commander, our scans are complete," Ju reported, her mandibles clicking softly as she spoke. "The dominant species calls themselves humans. Carbon-based, average lifespan under 100 cycles, no natural weapons or armor. Their technology is pre-warp with limited spaceflight capabilities restricted to their own solar system." Taehyun's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the planet. Defenses. Primitive nuclear weapons, chemically propelled projectiles, and basic energy weapons, nothing that can penetrate our shields. Ju's tone carried the dismissive quality the Rakor reserve for lesser species. Their military forces are divided by geographical regions rather than unified. Standard conquest protocols are recommended. The commander nodded, feeling the familiar thrill of the hunt stirring within him. For 3 centuries, the Rakor Empire had expanded unchallenged across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their natural superiority made conquest almost routine. Identify a viable world, overwhelm any resistance, and subjugate the native species. The strong ruled the weak. This was the way of the universe according to Rakor philosophy. "Begin preparations for first contact," Taehyun ordered. "Deploy scout ships to sample their atmosphere and confirm compatibility with our biology." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member performing their role in the well-established conquest ritual. The Rakor had subjugated 27 species to date, each one now serving their empire as workers, food sources, or both. Taehyun walked to the tactical display, where a 3-dimensional map of the target planet rotated slowly. He noted the population centers, the military installations, the seats of government. All would fall quickly once the invasion began. "Their weapons can't pierce our armor," observed Ju, joining him at the display. Preliminary biological samples suggest they would be suitable additions to the feeding grounds. The feeding grounds. The term brought back memories of Taehyun's homeworld, Rakoria, a planet so harsh that only the strongest survived, where acid rains fell on plains of razor-sharp crystal formations, where even the plants were carnivorous. Evolution had shaped the Rakor into perfect predators, strong, resilient, and utterly merciless. "How many Rakor ships have they detected?" Taehyun asked. "None, Commander. We've maintained our stealth field. Their primitive scanning technology cannot penetrate it." Taehyun clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The element of surprise always made conquests simpler. Less resistance meant fewer Rakor casualties, though such concerns were minimal given their regenerative capabilities. "I want reports on their governing structures, military capabilities, and social hierarchies," he commanded. "Identify their leaders for immediate elimination once we begin the ground assault." As his officers carried out his orders, Taehyun returned to the view screen, studying the blue-green world that would soon become the newest addition to the Rakor Empire. From this distance, it looked peaceful, unsuspecting. None of its inhabitants knew their place in the galaxy was about to change forever. The ship's biologist approached with additional reports. Commander, these humans appear to have unusual genetic diversity. Their immune systems show remarkable adaptability. Relevance. Taehyun asked curtly. Our standard bioweapons may require modification for maximum effectiveness, the biologist replied. I recommend a small-scale test before full deployment. Taehyun waved a clawed hand dismissively. Make the necessary adjustments. I want this conquest completed efficiently. He walked to his command chair, settling his armored frame into the ergonomic design. Around him, the bridge crew continued their preparations for the upcoming invasion. Weapons officers calibrated the ship's devastating arsenal. Communications specialists monitored Earth's transmissions, gathering intelligence. Biologists refined their weaponized pathogens, designed to weaken resistance before ground forces deployed. Sir, shall I prepare the feeding chambers for the first human specimens? Asked Ju. Yes, I wish to personally evaluate their suitability. Taehyun's mouthparts twitched in what passed for a smile among the Rakur. Another world for the feeding grounds, indeed. As the mighty Rakur vessel hung in space, hidden from Earth's primitive detection systems, Commander Taehyun contemplated the imminent conquest with the calm certainty of a predator who had never known defeat. In the 300 years since the Rakur had first ventured beyond their solar system, no species had successfully resisted them. These humans would be no different. Little did he know that on the planet below, a species that had survived countless natural disasters, predators, and their own destructive tendencies, was about to face their greatest challenge and deliver one in return. The Rakur invasion ships cut through Earth's atmosphere like knives through flesh. They made no attempt to hide their arrival, leaving burning trails across the morning sky as they descended toward major population centers. Commander Taehyun had authorized a direct approach, standard procedure for conquering primitive worlds. After all, fear was a useful tool when subjugating new species. First wave deployment complete, reported Officer Ju from her station on the command ship. Landing zones secured in target cities: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and Tokyo. Taehyun nodded, mandibles clicking with satisfaction as he watched the tactical display. Released the bioweapons. On his command, canisters of engineered pathogens were dispersed into Earth's atmosphere, releasing microscopic agents designed to weaken the human population. These biological weapons had devastated 27 other species across the galaxy. The Rakur method was efficient. Sicken the population, then land troops to establish control while resistance was minimal. Estimated time until the pathogens take effect? Taehyun asked. 6 hours, Commander, answered the ship's biologist. By then, most humans in the affected areas should be incapacitated. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Haeun stood in the underground command center of the United Earth Defense Force. Unlike the alien invaders, humans had spent decades preparing for this moment. Since the first confirmed UFO encounters in the mid-20th century, a secret global defense initiative had formed, hidden from public knowledge to prevent panic. They're exactly where we predicted, Haeun said, studying the holographic display showing Rakur ship positions. Her calm demeanor belied the gravity of the situation. All units maintain stealth protocols. Let them think we're helpless. Around her, military personnel from nations across the globe worked in coordinated silence. Years of joint training exercises had prepared them for this day. The Defense Force had technology that the public didn't know existed, reverse-engineered from crashed alien vessels, and developed in secret facilities around the world. Haeun adjusted her neural interface, connecting directly with field commanders worldwide. Bioweapon dispersal detected. Activate countermeasures. Across major cities, hidden atmospheric scrubbers began working, filtering the alien pathogens from the air. Meanwhile, emergency services distributed vaccines developed from previous alien biological samples, another secret kept from the public until this moment. 6 hours passed. Commander Taehyun expected reports of humans falling ill en masse. Instead, his communications officer delivered unexpected news. Commander, ground forces report heavy resistance at all landing zones. The humans appear, unaffected by our bioweapons. Impossible, Tae-hyun hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Show me. The view screen displayed footage from the Racker ground forces. Instead of finding weakened, disoriented humans, they faced organized military units using advanced weaponry. In New York, Racker troops encountered mechanized armored units. In Beijing, electromagnetic pulse weapons disabled Racker technology. In London, human soldiers wearing exoskeletons engaged the invaders in close combat. How are they resisting the pathogens? Tae-hyun demanded. The ship's biologist analyzed incoming data, mandibles twitching nervously. Their immune systems are unlike anything we've encountered. They appear to have extraordinary adaptive capabilities. Additionally, they've deployed countermeasures suggesting prior knowledge of biological warfare. This revelation stunned the command bridge into momentary silence. The Racker had never failed in their conquest methodology. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, undefeated for 3 centuries. On Earth, Colonel Haeun moved to Phase 2 of humanity's defense plan. Deploy EMP satellites. Target their orbital vessels. In space, concealed weapons platforms activated, sending electromagnetic pulses toward the Racker fleet. Ships began losing power, their advanced systems temporarily disabled by this surprisingly effective primitive technology. Tae-hyun slammed his armored fist against the command console as system after system failed. These creatures were supposed to be simple prey. He snarled, "How are they countering our technology?" Emergency power activated, providing minimal functionality to the command ship. Reports flooded in from ground forces, each worse than the last. In Tokyo, an entire Racker battalion was surrounded. In Moscow, their landing craft had been captured intact. In every engagement, the humans displayed knowledge of Racker weaknesses that should have been impossible for a species encountering them for the first time. Commander, Juwoo's voice carried a tone no Racker warrior used often. Concern. Analysis suggests the humans were prepared for us, specifically for us. The implications were disturbing. Had another spacefaring race warned Earth? Had the Racker Empire's security been compromised? In her command center, Colonel Haeun watched with grim satisfaction as the alien invasion faltered. Decades of preparation were paying off. The recovered alien craft from past incidents, the captured technology, the biological samples, all had been studied meticulously by Earth's best scientists, working in secret to prepare humanity for this inevitable day. Phase 3, she ordered. Activate the orbital defense grid. Hidden satellites revealed their true purpose, firing concentrated energy beams at the disabled Racker ships. The alien vessels, their shields compromised by the EMP attack, took heavy damage. On his command ship, Tae-hyun watched in disbelief as his mighty invasion force was systematically dismantled by what should have been easy prey. The tactical display showed Racker troops retreating, their landing craft destroyed, their bioweapons ineffective. Order all forces to fall back to secondary positions, he commanded, his voice tight with rage. Bring the fleet to battle stations once systems are restored. For the first time in his long career as a conqueror, Commander Tae-hyun faced the possibility of defeat. As emergency repairs continued around him, he studied the humans with new respect and growing concern. These weren't the helpless creatures his scans had suggested. They were something else entirely, perhaps the first species the Racker had encountered that understood something they did not. The most dangerous prey is the one that has learned to become a predator itself. The Racker cruiser drifted in high orbit, its hull scarred from the initial battles 3 months ago. Inside the ship's central analysis chamber, Commander Tae-hyun stood surrounded by holographic displays showing human advancements. His clawed hands clenched as he studied the data with growing disbelief. Play the footage again, he ordered. The display showed a human military base where captured Racker weapons were being systematically disassembled, studied, and rebuilt. Human scientists moved with purpose, their actions displaying a level of understanding that should have taken years to develop, not mere weeks. Their adaptation rate exceeds all projections, said Officer Juwu, bringing another data set forward. The humans have modified our plasma rifles to emit frequencies that penetrate our natural armor. Taehyun hissed softly. How? Such modifications would require intimate knowledge of our biology. They captured several of our warriors alive, Juwu reminded him, and their medical technology is surprisingly advanced. They've mapped our entire biological structure. The commander turned to face a new display showing a timeline of human warfare. From primitive stone tools to nuclear weapons, humans had continuously evolved their combat capabilities at a pace unmatched by any species the Rakor had encountered. Look at this pattern, Taehyun said, pointing to historical conflicts. The humans have faced superior forces repeatedly throughout their history. The weaker side often prevails through adaptation. This concept was foreign to the Rakor. On their harsh homeworld, strength had always determined survival. Their evolution had been linear, becoming stronger, faster, better armored. Adaptation meant physical improvement over generations, not tactical shifts within a single lifetime. There's something else, Commander, Juwu said, her voice unusually quiet. Analysis of human evolution shows they were prey species before becoming predators. Taehyun's yellow eyes widened. Explain. Unlike us, who evolved as apex predators from the beginning, humans were hunted by larger predators for millions of years. They developed intelligence as a survival mechanism before becoming hunters themselves. This revelation disturbed Taehyun deeply. The Rakor had always hunted. They understood the mindset of a predator, but they had never been prey. They didn't understand how a prey species thinks, how it watches, learns, and finds weaknesses in creatures stronger than itself. They think differently than we do, Taehyun realized aloud. They don't just fight. They study their enemies. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Haeun reviewed the final details of Operation Shadow Strike. Around her, 12 elite soldiers made their preparations in silence. Each wore a specialized suit developed using Rakor technology, designed to mask their heat signatures and bioelectrical output. The mothership's shield frequencies rotate every 83 minutes, Haeun explained, pointing to the tactical display. We'll have a 6-second window to teleport aboard using their own transportation technology. One of the soldiers looked up from checking his weapon. And once we're inside, we move directly to the central database. Our primary objective is to download their star charts and fleet positions. Secondary objective is to sabotage their communications array. The mission wasn't just a military operation, it was a hunt. Humans were turning the tables on the galaxy's most feared predators. Back on the Rakor vessel, alarms suddenly blared. Taehyun rushed to the command bridge where chaos had erupted. Report, he demanded. Security breach in Sector 7. A junior officer responded. Intruders detected near the central database. Taehyun stared at the security feeds in disbelief. Human soldiers moved through his ship with precision, avoiding patrols, using the vessel's architecture against its own crew. They weren't just fighting. They were hunting the Rakor on their own ship. Lock down all sensitive systems, Taehyun ordered. Deploy security teams to intercept. But the humans seemed to anticipate every countermeasure. They moved like shadows, striking quickly before disappearing into the ship's maintenance tunnels. The Rakor security teams found themselves ambushed repeatedly, facing weapons modified to exploit their biological weaknesses. Inside the central database chamber, Colonel Haeun connected a small device to the main console. Begin transfer, she whispered into her communicator. The human device interfaced with Rakor technology, copying vast amounts of strategic data within seconds. Secondary target acquired, reported one of her team members. Charges set on the communications array. Haeun nodded. Fall back to extraction point. 60 seconds. On the bridge, Taehyun watched helplessly as the humans executed their plan with flawless precision. They're not just soldiers, he realized aloud. They're hunters. Officer Juwu stared at her commander. But we are the apex predators. Not here, Taehyun replied grimly. Not against them. The humans vanished from the ship as mysteriously as they had appeared, teleporting away moments before Rakur security forces converged on their position. Seconds later, the mothership's communications array exploded, cutting off the vessel from the rest of the fleet. In the aftermath, Taehyun returned to the analysis chamber, his mind racing with new understanding. He pulled up footage of Earth's natural history, of early humans using simple tools to bring down animals many times their size, of human villages working together to drive off predators, of humans studying the behavior of dangerous animals to learn how to defeat them. For the first time in his life, Taehyun felt something the Rakur rarely experienced: doubt. His species had evolved to be perfect predators, but the humans had evolved something potentially more powerful: adaptability. They were prey before they were predators, he murmured. They know how to think like both. As Taehyun stood contemplating this unsettling revelation, reports came in of more human attacks across the fleet. Each strike precisely targeted Rakur weaknesses. Each operation displayed intimate knowledge of Rakur systems and biology. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were studying their enemy, adapting their tactics, and turning the Rakur's own strengths against them. The mighty predators of the galaxy were facing something they had never encountered before: a species that knew how to hunt the hunters. The massive Rakur battle cruiser limped through space, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Inside the command center, Commander Taehyun stared at the tactical display with unblinking yellow eyes. 3 more ships lost. 5 more battles ended in defeat. The mighty Rakur Empire was retreating on all fronts. The Valerians have joined the human alliance, Officer Juwu reported, her voice carrying an unfamiliar tremor. They've provided their cloaking technology to the human fleet. Taehyun hissed softly. The Valerians had been among the first species conquered by the Rakur generations ago. Their advanced cloaking systems had been deemed interesting but ultimately useless against superior Rakur hunting senses. Now those same technologies were being turned against them. And the Krell? Taehyun asked. They've pledged their warrior castes to the human cause. Their ships are already engaging our forces in the Centauri system. The Krell, too, a species known for their unwavering loyalty once properly subjugated. Something about the humans had inspired these former slaves to rise up and fight their masters. The tactical display updated, showing more Rakur vessels in retreat. Juwu watched the symbols moving across the screen, her mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. They're hunting us, she whispered. Not just fighting. Hunting. The word hung in the air. Hunting. An activity the Rakur had always performed, never experienced. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, the hunters of countless worlds. Yet now, they were being tracked, cornered, and captured or killed with methodical precision. Taehyun moved to his private chambers, activating a secure display. The screen showed the face of Colonel Haeun, the human commander who had infiltrated his ship months earlier. Since that day, he had collected every piece of information about her he could find. He studied her tactics, her strategies, her background. She had been a wildlife conservation officer before joining the military, someone who tracked and studied predators. That experience now informed her military strategy against the Rakur. She didn't just fight them. She understood them. A new alert sounded throughout the ship. Taehyun rushed back to the command center. "Report," he demanded. "Human fleet detected approaching from Vector 227, responded the tactical officer. "They've somehow bypassed our outer defense line." "Show me." The display revealed a formation of ships, human vessels alongside craft belonging to formerly subjugated species. They moved in perfect coordination, using patterns that seemed strangely familiar to Taehyun. "They're using hunting formations," he realized aloud, "like the pack predators from our homeworld." The humans had studied not just Rakur technology, but their evolutionary history, their hunting patterns, their biology. They had learned how the Rakur thought, then taught that knowledge to other species in the Alliance. All vessels, defensive formation. Taehyun ordered. Prepare tow. His words were cut short as the ship rocked violently. The lights flickered and emergency alarms blared. We've been hit by electromagnetic weapons, Ju reported. Main power failing. Weapons offline. Another impact. Another alarm. The bridge crew moved frantically to restore systems, but Taehyun could see the outcome already. This battle was lost before it had truly begun. Across the Rakur fleet, a new sensation spread from ship to ship, from warrior to warrior. It was unfamiliar, unwelcome, and unstoppable. Fear, pure, primal fear. Their genetic memory held no framework for processing this emotion. They had been apex predators for so long that fear had been bred out of their species. Now it returned, a forgotten evolutionary response awakening from dormancy. On her command ship, Colonel Haeun watched the Rakur fleet's disorganized response with grim satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. The psychological warfare campaign, targeting the Rakur's inability to process fear, was as effective as their military strikes. "They're breaking formation," reported her tactical officer. "Their communications are chaotic." Haeun nodded. "Press the advantage. Disable their engines but try to capture vessels intact when possible." The once mighty Rakur Empire was collapsing from within. Fear spread like a contagion through their ranks. Warriors who had never known defeat now faced it repeatedly. Officers who had commanded with absolute authority now hesitated, uncertain. Their society had no mechanisms to cope with failure. As his ship's systems failed around him, Commander Taehyun made a decision. He needed to understand this enemy who had accomplished the impossible. "Prepare my personal shuttle," he ordered. Ju looked at him in shock. "Commander, I will face Colonel Haeun directly." His mandibles clicked with determination. "The Rakur must adapt, or we will perish." Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. The species once deemed invincible was in retreat. The humans, a previously unknown species from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system, had accomplished what no other species had managed in 3 centuries. They had turned the predators into prey. The Battle of the Orion sector became legendary almost immediately. The Rakur fleet, once the terror of 3 spiral arms, was forced into full retreat. More subjugated species joined the human alliance daily, bringing their unique technologies and abilities to the fight. In distant worlds, beings whispered a new name with hope and awe. Humans, the predator's predator. The natural order of the galaxy was changing. The hunters had become the hunted, and nothing would ever be the same again. As his shuttle broke away from the dying flagship, Commander Taehyun reviewed everything he had learned about Colonel Haeun. His hatred for her remained intense, but alongside it grew something unexpected: respect. She fought not for conquest or feeding grounds, but for freedom. Not just for her species, but for all those the Rakur had subjugated. For the first time in his life, Taehyun wondered if there might be something more powerful than being an apex predator. Perhaps the greatest evolutionary advantage was not strength or natural weapons, but the ability to learn, to change, to adapt, and most surprisingly of all, to cooperate. The combined fleet of human and allied ships filled the space around Rakuria, the harsh homeworld of the once invincible empire. From his command vessel, Commander Taehyun watched as hundreds of ships surrounded his planet. After a year of defeats across the galaxy, the Rakur had been pushed back to where they began. In the sky above Rakuria, 3 suns cast harsh light on a landscape of crystal mountains and acid plains. The planet had forged the Rakur into perfect predators, but now those same predators faced extinction. "The human commander requests your presence for negotiations," Officer Ju reported, her once confident voice now subdued. "They have transmitted coordinates for a neutral meeting ground." Taehyun stood silent for a long moment. The concept of negotiation was foreign to Rakur culture. Their history contained only victory or death, conqueror or conquered, predator or prey. There was no middle path. Yet now, a middle path seemed the only way forward. "Prepare my shuttle," he finally said. The meeting took place on a small station positioned between the opposing fleets. Taehyun arrived with a small guard, his tall, armored form moving with the natural grace of a born hunter. Colonel Haeun waited in the central chamber, flanked by representatives from 5 formerly subjugated species. "Commander Taehyun," Haeun greeted him without fear or hatred in her voice. "Thank you for coming." Taehyun studied the human who had changed the fate of the galaxy. She was physically unimpressive by Rakor standards. No natural armor, no claws, no obvious strength. Yet she had outmaneuvered, outfought, and outthought the greatest military power in known space. "You have defeated us," Taehyun stated bluntly. "Have you brought me here to witness my people's extinction?" The human representatives exchanged glances, and Haeun stepped forward. "No," she said simply. "We don't seek your extinction, but your cooperation. The galaxy doesn't need apex predators. It needs partners." Confusion washed over Taehyun. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed her words. "Partners, we conquered your allies. We attempted to conquer you. Why would you offer partnership rather than revenge?" "Because revenge continues the cycle," Haeun explained. "My species learned this lesson through countless wars among ourselves. Victory without wisdom leads only to future conflict." She activated a holographic display showing a proposed treaty. The terms stunned Taehyun. The Rakor would surrender their conquered territories and dismantle their military forces, but would retain their homeworld and several colony planets. They would join a new galactic council as equals with other species, including those they had once subjugated. "This is mercy," Taehyun said, the concept strange on his tongue. "It's pragmatism," Haeun corrected. "Your people have knowledge, technology, and abilities that could benefit everyone if shared rather than used for domination." Behind Taehyun, his guards shifted uncomfortably. The idea challenged everything in Rakor culture. Strength determined right. The powerful fed on the weak. These were the foundations of their society. Yet that society now stood on the brink of destruction. "And if we refuse?" Taehyun asked, already knowing the answer. Haeun's expression hardened slightly. "Then we finish what we started. But neither of us wants that outcome." For the first time in 3 centuries, a Rakor commander surrendered. The treaty was signed there, in that small station between the fleets. News spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The invincible predators had been humbled, not destroyed. 6 months later, the first Galactic Council convened on a newly constructed space station. Representatives from 28 species gathered in the Great Circular Chamber, seated as equals regardless of their biological capabilities or technological advancement. Taehyun entered alongside Colonel Haeun, their unlikely partnership having become the symbol of the new order. The former commander had spent months learning concepts alien to Rakor thinking: cooperation, mutual benefit, and the strange human idea of win-win scenarios. "Many still doubt this can work," Taehyun said quietly as they walked, "especially among my people." "Change is never easy," Haeun replied. "But your species has an incredible capacity for adaptation when survival demands it." The council session opened with Haeun addressing the gathered representatives. Her speech was brief but powerful, outlining a vision of a galaxy where different evolutionary paths and biological abilities could complement rather than compete with each other. "Our evolutionary path made us unique," she explained. "Humans were both prey and predator throughout our history. We learned that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from adapting together." After the formal proceedings, Taehyun found himself standing with Haeun on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. "My ancestors would consider this weakness," he admitted. "Cooperation instead of conquest." "And where did their path lead?" Haeun asked gently. "To defeat," Taehyun acknowledged. "But I still struggle to understand how your species prevailed. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no regenerative abilities." Haeun smiled. We had something more powerful: diversity of thought, cooperative problem-solving, and a unique perspective from having been both hunter and hunted throughout our evolution. Over the following years, the galaxy transformed. Former Racker feeding grounds became thriving independent worlds. Racker regenerative biology, once used only for warfare, became the foundation for medical advances that benefited all species. Ships that had once carried conquest fleets now transported knowledge, resources, and people between worlds. Tahian, once the fiercest Racker commander, became known as a bridge builder between species. He still carried the instincts and biology of an apex predator, but he had learned a truth that changed everything. Compassion wasn't weakness but strength. The ability to show mercy, to cooperate rather than dominate, to see value in difference rather than threat. These were evolutionary advantages more powerful than claws or armor. In time, even young Racker came to understand what their ancestors could not, that the true apex position in the galaxy belonged not to the strongest predator, but to those who could adapt, cooperate, and evolve not just physically, but culturally and ethically as well. The predators had been humbled not by superior strength, but by superior wisdom. And in that humbling, they found a path to a greater future than conquest alone could ever have provided.